They say that once a season in football, something amazing and magical happens. Think Leicester winning the league or John Obi Mikel scoring a goal. Well, this is the story of how Newcastle's Joelinton wins the Premier League Golden Boot. Hypothetically. It's the start of the season. Newcastle are away to West Ham and they finally had the balls to leave £40 million flop Joelinton on the bench in favour of their new marquee signing Callum Wilson. The game starts pretty cagey until the half-hour mark when West Ham take the lead from a corner. Taking the lead seems to affect their concentration though, and only minutes later Callum Wilson uses his pace to latch on to a long kick out from the keeper and level the scores. This seems to instill some confidence in Newcastle, which leads to a beautiful flowing move that ends with Miguel Almiron putting the ball on a plate for Wilson to tap home his second, giving Newcastle the lead at half-time. In the dressing room, spirits are high, and everyone is congratulating Wilson on his fine start. The exception is Joelinton, who is quickly realising he will probably never start a game again. The team heads back out for the second half with a final word from the gaffer to keep the concentration. That's exactly what they don't do, however, giving Yarmolenko far too much time on the edge of the box to find the far left corner with a fine finish. The game becomes feisty after this, both sides picking up yellows. It's the 85th minute when Mark Noble takes the legs from Almiron, another definite yellow card, but St. Maximin maintains the possession and so the ref plays on. The ball is knocked in behind for Wilson. Fabianski is off his line quickly, but Wilson is quicker and takes the ball around him. The keeper crashes into him with an almighty force. The ref's whistle is barely even heard over the cry of pain from Wilson. Replays showed that he took a very hard knock to the knee. On comes Joelinton. Steve Bruce calls over captain John Joe Shelvey to tell him that he is to take the penalty. What neither of them realise is that Joelinton has already stepped up. He takes a step towards the ball and thinks, I'll hit it to the keeper's right. No! Cries Steve Bruce. Joelinton takes another step and thinks, actually, I'll hit it to his left. No! Cries John Joe Shelvey. Another step and Joelinton thinks, screw it, I'm just going to hit it as hard as I can. No! Cry 50,000 Newcastle fans. Joelinton finishes his run and unleashes a rocket of a shot. Fabianski doesn't even have time to react as the ball finds the top corner. Yes! Cry Steve Bruce and John Joe Shelvey and 50,000 Newcastle fans. They hold out to start the season with a win. Unfortunately, at a cost, as scans show that Wilson will be out for at least 6 months. Once again, Joelinton has found his way into the starting lineup. Next up is Brighton, and people have been commenting that his confident penalty could be a sign of things to come. Joelinton, however, seems on a mission to prove them wrong, with the game 0-0 at the 90th minute mark, with him having squandered multiple glorious chances. This all changes in the 91st minute though, when Shelvey finds him on the edge of the box. He cannons a first-time shot wildly towards goal. It was probably going to end up somewhere in the stand, but it ricochets off Lewis Dunk and lands back at the feet of the Brazilian. This time he takes a touch, composes himself and bends one into the far corner. Newcastle finished the game on 6 points, with Joelinton having scored 2 goals in 2 games, as many as he managed in 38 the season before. Unfortunately for the Toons, their great start to the season comes to an end in their next game, a 3-2 defeat to Spurs. They did put in a spirited performance though, with both of their goals coming from Joelinton, who seems to have cemented himself as the main man ahead of the likes of Andy Carroll and Dwight Gale. This brace also puts him on top of the scoring charts. From here until Christmas, Newcastle's form is mixed, but with super striker Joelinton terrorising every defence in the league, they find themselves sitting in a comfortable 8th position. Still, in their St. Stephen's Day match away to Manchester City, nobody gives them much hope. The City attack does seem to be too much for the team from Tyneside, and they find themselves 3-0 down at half-time. Steve Bruce prepares himself for a tough team talk, but instead Joelinton steps up and gives the most rousing speech since Mel Gibson in Braveheart. His English isn't very good, but his teammates get the point and head out of the tunnel ready to fight for the pride if nothing else. Joelinton proves he has the bite to go with his bark, and just seconds after the restart sweeps home with his right foot. Man City attempt to kill the game with their passing, but this seems to backfire when Rodri sloppily gives the ball away in midfield. St. Maximin rods down the wing and his cross finds Joelinton at the back post, who volleys home on his left. City are clearly rattled and for the first time start sitting deep and allowing Newcastle to have the possession. They appear to get away with it as the final whistle approaches. All they have to do is defend a free kick on the halfway line and the 3 points are theirs. The ball is floated in and Joelinton rises above Nathan Ake to power home a header. 1,000 Toon fans in the corner of the stadium erupt. The ref blows his whistle to end the game immediately after, and Joelinton takes home the match ball for his perfect hat-trick. Tite even announces that after this he will be calling him up to the Brazil national squad. Newcastle do seem to go into their next game a bit too confident and end up suffering a 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. But even this isn't enough to knock Joelinton off the top of the goal-scoring charts or prevent him from picking up his second Player of the Month award. The Toons begin the new year in fine form, brushing aside Leicester, Sheffield and Arsenal, who have all been languishing in mid-table. While Joelinton didn't score in the first two of these games, he does get a brace against Arsenal, seeing him reach the 20-goal mark after just 19 games. The match also sees Mikel Arteta sacked as Arsenal manager and replaced with Thierry Henry. Newcastle are brought back to earth with a 1-1 draw against Leeds in their next game, but this point does see them move into 5th with Liverpool embarrassing Spurs 5-0. Mixed results throughout the month of February are enough to keep them on the fringes of the top 4, but fans are getting worried as main man Joelinton only manages to score once in these 5 games, albeit a very tidy finish following a solo run against Chelsea in a game which finished 1-1. At the end of the match he exchanged high fives with fellow Golden Boot chaser Timo Werner, who scored the other goal of the game. As the weather in England begins to improve and the rain subsides, Joelinton starts to rediscover his form and bags his second hat-trick of the campaign against rock-bottom West Brom. With Man City coming out on top of the Manchester derby, this allows Newcastle to close the gap on Manchester United in 4th to just 2 points. Being so close to the Champions League spot seems to really light a fire within Joelinton, with his teammates commenting that he'd become a terrifying goal-scoring machine in training. Aston Villa are the first to feel the force of this, suffering a 1-0 defeat to his brilliance despite their shaky defence putting in one of their best performances of the season. A string of 3 similar 1-0 wins occur in their next 3 games, with Tottenham Hotspur being the only team of the 3 to stop Joelinton from being the game winner, though this was only because he unselfishly laid the ball on a plate for Almiron when he could have easily scored himself. In a post-match interview, Harry Kane states that he could only dream of replicating Joelinton's form. 2 draws in their next 2 games seems to hand the impetus for a top 4 finish back to Manchester United, though taking 2 points from Liverpool sees Manchester City leapfrog them to top of the table. Liverpool bounce back with a win against Manchester United in their next game, and United also suffer the blow of Bruno Fernandes picking up an injury which rules him out for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, Joelinton scores twice against Arsenal for the second time. The Gunners have been awful since putting Henry in charge. A run of similar results to each other mean Newcastle and Man United go into the final game week in a situation where all Newcastle need to do is match the Red Devils' result and 4th spot is theirs. Even Newcastle fans will admit that they're fortunate to be here, having been handed a very dubious penalty in their previous match against Sheffield United. Scoring this penalty, however, did mean that Joelinton scores against every single opposition in the league that season. For their final match, they're against Fulham, who have been playing fantastic football since guaranteeing their safety 2 weeks prior. Mitrovic puts the hosts in front on the stroke of half-time. The Newcastle players' trip to the dressing room is worsened by the news of Manchester United already being 2-0 up against Wolves. Panic starts to spread as the players look to their striker. He looks each of them in the eye before saying one thing: calm. As crazy as it sounds, this has the perfect effect on the squad, and they kick off a second half which will go down as one of the most dominant and beautiful 45 minutes of football in Newcastle's history. Joelinton scores 4 times to blow Fulham and the footballing world away, cementing himself as the record holder for most goals in a Premier League season. He also earns himself the PFA Player of the Year award as well as a Ballon d'Or nomination. This finishes the story of how Joelinton won the Premier League Golden Boot. Hypothetically.